Initiation by Elisabeth Haich. Chapter 33, The Form of the Pyramids. Once again I stand before Ptahhotep in his laboratory. I've already explained to you, he says, that behind all the manifestations of the visible world, there is a primordial force, a striving to return to the state of unity. And this force is apparent as the attraction between two complementary halves, the positive and the negative. You are now standing before me because the Earth's gravitational force is holding you here. If it weren't for this force, you and everything that is not rooted to the Earth would have spun off into space long ago. Even the whole gigantic body of the Earth would have broken apart long ago. The force which holds together the Earth and all the matter within its atmosphere, doesn't belong to the Earth itself, but merely affects the Earth, operating outward from its center. This force, which we call weight, is at work in every form of nature, and when we build, we must reckon and work with this force, never against it. When we take proper account of it, it helps us preserve our buildings for a long time. If we were to try to build against the laws of these forces, all our structures would collapse in practically no time at all. It's enough for you to understand that in the pyramidal form, the resultant of forces is the most favorable one possible for the preservation of buildings for many thousands of years against the ravages of nature. The pyramids, particularly the Great Pyramid, have been built according to various mathematical and astronomical laws in order to serve the people as a clock and calendar. You will learn these laws another time. Moreover, the fact that the lateral faces stand at an angle of 51 degrees to their base enables the pyramid to reflect the sun's rays far out to the sea and far out into the desert. Thus, our pyramids also serve as lighthouses. All the laws on which they are based, together with the history of those who have built them, are inscribed on the ceramic tiles with which they are covered. When the sons of men someday discover the secret of our writing, they will be able for a long time to read right from the pyramids themselves the knowledge and the information that I'm giving you now, the mathematical and astronomical laws that we have applied, the secrets of the pyramids, and all our scientific knowledge. In the darkest ages of man, however, these written records will also disappear, so the sons of men will later have to discover all truth for themselves. You must learn the law of the three-dimensional world, which is based on the law of the Spirit and could not exist without it. The first source of all truth and all manifestation is the eternal being, God. But God is in the unmanifested state beyond time and space, and only his manifestations appear as projections in the three-dimensional world. Therefore, in order to understand these laws correctly, we must begin with God. Every living creature can only understand God to the extent to which it itself is able consciously to experience, manifest, and realize God. That is, to the extent to which itself can be God. In everything God is living, and in everything is living in God. Nevertheless, God, in his own complete perfect being, can be understood only by one who has himself become God or who has never fallen out of God. God can only be understood by God. The fact that even the most primitive man has a concept of God shows that divine consciousness is dwelling within him, even though only very dimly and to the lowest degree. Man's intellect, the greatest but most dangerous gift that he has received from God, builds a bridge across the seemingly unconquerable chasm between that which is personal and mortal and that which is impersonal and eternal. By means of his intellect, man is able to understand truth, and when he has understood, he will seek and keep on seeking and trying until someday he succeeds in finding the only path to the realization of his self. But your intellect is not you. The intellect is outside of yourself. Consequently, what you can do with your intellect is not you yourself, is not achievement of realization. When man seeks God outside himself, he can often be thinking about God, thinking in quotes. He can be praying to God. He can be loving God with his whole being. But all this doesn't mean that he's become identical with God. For man can never find God by seeking outside himself. Man can only experience God in this way, and this is resurrection. In this state, he recognizes that his own self has created him and is constantly creating him. Hence, that his own self is the creator. He likewise realizes that the one and only self is the creator of the entire universe. As a result of this divine self-recognition, he simultaneously experiences the creative cosmic all-consciousness. At the same time as he achieves self-recognition, he achieves recognition of everything, omniscience. This divine state in which the Creator recognizes himself may also be expressed symbolically by numbers. Let us now watch how the second dimension arises from the first. A line consists of a series of points. Assuming the creative energy is active in each of these points with the same force and for the same period of time, each of these points moves outward from itself into the second dimension. Each of them becomes a line, and out of the totality of these lines, a plane is created, an equilateral rectangle. The whole three-dimensional world is built up on this same log, quite irrespective of whether the form concerned is considered to be inanimate matter or living creature, whether a given form is that of a plant, an animal, or a human. The body of each of these is subject to the laws of the three-dimensional world. Hidden and invisible within this body, however, is the higher divine self, life, eternal being. Only man is able to manifest his higher self, that is God, through his thoughts, words, and deeds, when he identifies his consciousness not with his body, but with its spiritual content and with his self. As long as a person identifies himself only with his body, he is like an opaque cube, in that he reveals only the characteristics of matter, crowding the divine creative principle into a latent, unmanifested state. No one suspects that the tetrahedron, the divine self, so different from the outward cubic shape, is dwelling within. On the other hand, a person who uses his body, his thoughts, words, and deeds only to manifest the divine creating principle, while leaving the characteristics of his physical existence, his person, in the unmanifested state, such a person, to continue using the same figure of speech, is like a cut cube whose corners and inner content are turned outwards so that its inner triangles, the equilateral triangles of the divine tetrahedron, are visible. Such a person uses the material, square shape, only as a secure base in the three-dimensional world, allowing his weight to rest on this base. The pyramids will continue to stand for thousands of years, proclaiming to humanity the highest truths which have been built into them. People with eyes and ears will find and recognize these elements of truth, even though they may not be able to fathom all the mathematical and astronomical laws of the pyramids, and some few highly developed persons will even be able to attain the truth proclaimed. On the other hand, for primitive minds, the pyramid will always be a puzzle, just like the Sphinx, till they reach the point of being able to solve their own puzzle. Spirit is life. Matter is resistance. The law of the spirit is radiation, giving, selflessness. The law of matter is drawing inward, cooling off. paralysis. There is only one single creature that is able consciously to combine the two laws, man. He is the connecting link between the world of the spirit and that of matter. He is able to live at one and the same time by the laws of both worlds. His thoughts, words, and deeds can be an act of giving, radiating selflessness and universal love. On the other hand, his body belongs to the material world and lives by the laws of matter. At its right place and in its right time, every law is divine. Ptahhotep stops speaking, and I stand before him in silence and awe. Now, you may go, my child, says Ptahhotep. You've had enough for today. Next time, we'll talk about the 4 sides of the pyramids. They contain further truths, and if you want to attain complete self-recognition, they are very important for you. I bow and leave.